Starting out with a sermon reading and dealing with relationships. And this is a powerful one that we're going to look at a little bit here today because there's a lot of stuff going on. Hebrews 12, 14 to 15. The writer says, make every effort to live in peace with everyone. And this is an important part as we look at. And also to be holy, because without holiness, no one sees the Lord. And see to it that no one falls short of the grace of God, and that no bitter root grows up that causes trouble and defiles many. And so today, as we look at this idea of seeking peace in the midst of relationships, in the midst of conflict, as we start in an amazing sense, I don't know how we finally got this taped, but we've got the very first argument that ever took place on the earth between Adam and Eve, and it's on tape here. So if you just watch the first argument, we'll see that arguments have been around in conflict forever, okay? So please watch.
Adam, does this goat skin make me look big?
Looks better on you than the previous owner. What?
I'm having a hard time losing these last few pounds since bearing your children, and that's the best you can do? I look better than a goat? Thanks.
Babe, you know you are the most beautiful woman on the planet. What?
I'm the only woman on the planet.
Well, I can't help that.
You know, and it's amazing that as the only woman on the planet, you still can't seem to remember my birthday or give me flowers once in a while.
Well, I did give you a rib.
Oh, right. I forgot about that, since you haven't mentioned it for an hour. It's like your free pass to never lift a finger for me again.
Never lift a finger? I am out there busting my rear all day. Food just doesn't pop up from the ground. I have to get it with the sweat of my brow, since someone went and got the ground cursed.
You think farming's hard? Try raising those kids. Try giving birth.
Well, if someone wouldn't have taken advice from a talking reptile.
Oh, here we go.
Are you talking to me, you little snake? What? Oh, jump off a bridge? Oh, I would, but they haven't been invented yet. Oh, eat this fruit? Well, you look like a pretty trustworthy snake.
Nobody's perfect.
Yeah, well, we were until you went and pretty much ruined it for all of mankind, so good job with that.
I seem to remember you taking a bite, too.
Well, I thought I was eating from the tree of the knowledge of restfulness and serenity.
Right. It's never your fault.
Besides, what was I gonna do with a fallen wife? That would just be weird.
Oh, you fell for me? You're an idiot.
Idiot? I named every single animal.
Right. Great job with that. A prairie dog's not a dog. A seahorse isn't a horse, and a bald eagle isn't bald.
Well, I was going pretty fast.
Aardvark? Platypus?
Okay, they were at the back of the line. Not everything can be cat or rat or bat.
Hippopotamus?
Yeah, well, woman was taken. Okay, how many gourds do you have back there? That was a joke. Not good for men to be alone.
No, it's great.
First argument. It's been around forever, hasn't it? Conflict. So here we are in our home improvement series, and we're looking at today conflict resolution. And this is the goal, always. Resolution. To end the thing, to come to a resolution in it. You know, it's crucial to learn how to handle conflict in a healthy, productive, positive way. And it's possible if we have the right attitudes, if we communicate properly, and as one of the things I say in counseling a lot, if we don't fight dirty. Okay, we can't fight dirty. How many times, and I'm just asking you this now because this oftentimes I'm sitting in premarital counseling, whatever it is, and I say, how often do you fight and argue? Well, we fight and argue a lot. Well, what do you fight and argue about? The same thing every time. We get this issue comes up, we fight, we argue, we get mad at each other, we get angry, we feel guilty about it, we just stop fighting because we want to finally have some peace, and then it doesn't pop up for a day or a week or a month later, but the same thing pops up again. And I said, that's because you never get resolution. The goal is conflict resolution, not to fight or try and win or to be right, but to resolve the issue in the best possible way. See, conflict itself is natural. Hey, that jumped. It's natural, it's neutral, and it's inevitable, but it doesn't always stay that way, does it? That's the reality. Conflict is nothing more than this. Are you ready? Two differing opinions or viewpoints in the same place at the same time. See, it's neutral. There's nothing wrong with that unless we make something wrong with it in what we do and what we say and how we behave. So the goal today, I want us to get this, the goal today is to find the best possible solution and to resolve the issue. It's not to win, and it's not to prove yourself as being right. So I looked at that first scripture, Hebrews chapter 12. I thought it was a good scripture because it literally says at the beginning, pursue peace with everyone. We are called to pursue peace, and that's an important thing. And it also says pursue holiness, which is the right way to live and to do the right things. But to pursue means to press hard after it, to seek it. Make sure that no one misses the grace or falls short of God's grace. And then he throws this little phrase in there. He says, don't let that bitter root get in there. It's finally beginning to warm up, isn't it? We're actually seeing things grow out of the ground. Isn't that a wonderful thing? Gardens are beginning to grow. And what he's saying is in the midst of this, don't let that poisonous root, that poisonous plant, that bitter root begin to grow, because we know that sometimes that gets in a garden, it'll take hold of everything and it will ruin, bring destruction to the whole garden if you let that one thing go. So take care of it and get rid of it. That's what he's saying. Pursue peace and don't let these conflicts, these things come together and cause problems. So today I'm going to share with you some tools that can help us resolve conflict in healthy and positive ways before they cause trouble and begin destroying relationships. Okay, everybody ready? Here's where we're going to be. Now, last week we learned some principles for good, healthy relationships, and I'm hoping if you didn't get to see it last week, find it on the website. It's always there, and these are the building blocks of where we're going to begin. And some of those things that we talked about were the big C's, right? If you remember that, we talked about communication is so important. We talked about the idea of compromise or collaboration, making concessions, not just you win or I win, but we win together. We talked about commitment and how important just to stay committed it is, and also to have Christ in your life and leading as Lord, not only in your life, but in your relationships, and to live the Christ-like lifestyle, and that is going to help us in the midst of building great relationships. Now remember, everything I'm talking about is about people who want to build healthy relationships. This is about people who are involved in making that happen. This is not about being in abusive situations. It's not about dysfunction. It's not about somebody completely abandons the relationship. What else can you do? You see, that's not the two people trying to have a healthy relationship. These are the points that we want to have healthy relationships within our lives. So the first thing is this. If we want to have conflict resolution, we have got to know what the conflict is about. Far too often I sit and talk with people, and they think that the conflict is about this tip of the iceberg that's sitting up above the water, when the reality is everything under the water and under the surface is what the big fight's about. We have got to get to the very point of what the conflict is, to understand that point of what lies beneath. Sometimes conflict's about values. Sometimes conflict's about power. We have to understand the difference. Sometimes conflict is about differing priorities. Here's my priority of what I think should be done. Here's my priority of things that should be done. If they don't match up, there's conflict in the midst of it. How can we bring that together and make it work? Sometimes it's just about being frustrated or stressed or tired. That's okay. Sometimes it's about differences in methods or maybe unclear expectations. This is how I think this should be accomplished. Well, this is how I think it should be accomplished. They're not the same. There's conflict, right? Sometimes it's about unfulfilled expectations in someone's life, or maybe what you would call unmet needs within someone's life. And I want us to hear this one, okay? If there's unfulfilled needs or expectations and unmet needs, it's going to be problems. For many people here, and you can write this down. I told everybody in the first service, this is free advice today, okay? This is all free for you. Write this down. For many people, love is spelled, are you ready? Time. Everybody write that down? That's love, okay? Understand? Important. I guarantee you a partner will be very vulnerable to anyone who listens, who hears, who gives attention to, and understands issues because they give time to them. Okay, that's your job as the partner to make sure that happens, to make that connection. Sometimes it's misunderstandings that bring about conflict. Sometimes it's just personalities. Our personalities are so different, we're just in conflict. Sometimes it's trust issues. Sometimes it's about our own brokenness. Broken people say and do broken things. That's the way we are sometimes. But we got to get to the real issue. What is causing this conflict? The second aspect is we have to know how to respond to conflict. This is where you're going to start writing again, okay? Everybody got your inserts, both sides today. Man, we're really filling these things up. But here's an important part to remember. There's always going to be conflict, okay? There's always going to be conflict. Sometimes conflict is very simple and easy. Sometimes conflict is like, which way is the toilet paper supposed to come off the roll, over the top or under the bottom, right? Which way do we roll up the toothpaste and get all the toothpaste out? Do you squeeze it this way or do you roll it up this way? Which was the best way to wash the vehicle? That's simple stuff. Sometimes it's heavy stuff. How are we going to raise our kids? That's big. How are we going to deal with these big issues that we have within our lives? And what are we going to do with those? Or maybe the number one and number two reason for broken relationships and divorces in our culture, and I know number one and number two, they vie for first and second place all the time. They switch back and forth, but they're always the top two, and I bet you can guess what they are. Money and sexual issues. Every time. Those are the top ones. So that's why I talk about money and sexual issues, because if we don't, where are you going to hear the truth? I mean, seriously, where are you going to hear the truth of how we're supposed to live and what we do with these things if we don't find it here? Are we going to find it out there in the world somewhere, culture, telling us how we're supposed to live and who we're supposed to be? So here's 4 ways, everybody, 4 ways that we can deal with conflict. Everybody ready for number 1? You get to write this down. One way we deal with conflict is my way, right? Do we like that? I have to be right and I have to win. It's my way or it's the highway. Called dominance. Another way we deal with conflict is no way. I'm going to avoid conflict at all costs, no matter what. Anybody know people like that? Yeah, avoidance. That doesn't deal with it well. A third one is your way. I will continuously just give in to you until one day I finally explode because I can't take it anymore. Anybody know how that is and seen that before? Subordinates. But I think the best way is the 4th way. Our way. Our way. Now, I'm not just talking about a 50-50 compromise. I'll give 50%, you give 50%, we'll put it together. I'm talking about truly seeking the best and most positive result for the relationship, for the family, for the resolution of the problem. It's an agreement. This is that whole idea of understanding that the compromise and the collaboration and the concessions we make to get the best possible answer for what we need. So today I want to talk about 4 issues, really 4 scriptures that deal with proper attitudes and actions and how we treat one another, especially when it comes to conflict. And these are important ones that we get a hold of here. Number 1, Matthew 5:23 through 24. And here's what Jesus tells us. He says, if you're at the altar and you're praying, you're giving your sacrifice, your gift here at the altar, and you remember, I have conflict, unresolved conflict with somebody else. I have something against somebody else or someone else has something against me. He says, leave your gift there and go to that person and be reconciled. See how important he says that is? We have to be people who seek reconciliation. That's got to be an important part of our lives. To make every effort to make this happen. We are the ones who step out to make it happen and cause it to happen. You know what 2 of the most powerful words in language anywhere in the world is? Right here. Are you ready? I'm sorry. I guarantee you this, given in the proper terms, will change the atmosphere of what you're dealing with. If you can simply say, I'm sorry. In the church in our size and all the people that are here and all the things that are going on, I guarantee you there are persons here in the church who need to say, I'm sorry to somebody. In relationships. And I can almost guarantee you there are persons here who need to have someone saying they're sorry to you, and you need to accept that apology and make it real. And accept the apology of I'm sorry. See, forgiveness is a powerful, powerful thing. And so I put this even into your, I'm sure I put this in the notes, didn't I? Yes. Steps for seeking forgiveness. And this is so important that you admit what you did was wrong or hurtful. You try to empathize with the pain that you've caused. You take responsibility for your actions. You assure the partner, the other person in that relationship, you're not going to be doing this again. Apologize genuinely, ask for forgiveness, and this is an important one, forgive yourself. We have to forgive ourselves in the midst of this, seeking forgiveness. On the other hand, there's steps for granting forgiveness. You have to acknowledge, as you're there, acknowledge and give yourself permission to feel the pain, the anger, the disrespect that was there. It's okay. You've been harmed or hurt. Number 2, set clear and specific limits and expectations on the future. Okay, this happened before. We're not just going to go through this day and day and day. We need to change. Number 3, and this is powerful, give up your right to get even. You can still insist on being treated better in the future, but you give up your right to get even. Number 4, hard. Let go of blame, resentment, and negativity. Communicate your act of forgiveness and then work toward reconciliation only when and if it is safe to do so. Because some relationships, you can forgive someone who's harmed you, does not mean you have to go back and be in that relationship again in reconciliation. Some places it is not safe and you don't go back there. You can still forgive them because forgiveness is much about me and my heart and my life and my spirit, but that's the reality of it. Number 2, not only are we to seek reconciliation, we are people who need to seek mercy. Luke 6:36, be merciful as your heavenly Father is merciful. Matthew 5:7, blessed are the merciful, for they receive mercy. You see, we seek mercy and we offer it. Mercy as a definition is this. It's in your power to punish or to harm, yet you offer forgiveness and compassion in its place. We've been given incredible mercy from God. So we need to be people of mercy. And sometimes we're not people of mercy, are we? But we need to be people of mercy who offer mercy out to others, especially those close to us. Mercy is an important thing. See, I want you to understand mercy is a powerfully important characteristic of our reconciling relationship with God, that God had mercy and reached to us and offered us mercy. So we need to offer that reconciliation and that mercy to others. It's important. Number 3, another characteristic that's powerfully important, Romans 12:18. If at all possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with one another. We need to seek peace in our lives. Matthew 5:9, blessed are the peacemakers, for they should be called the very children of God. Those who seek peace. Whenever it's possible within our lives, we are the ones who seek peace, and we are seeking that. And finally, the last one, Ephesians 4:31 through 5:1. It says to get rid of bitterness and anger and fighting and malice, which is the intent to harm. Lots of times that's what's in the midst of conflict, isn't it? It's malice. We intend to harm others. But instead of that, be kind and compassionate and forgiving. Forgive each other just as Jesus has forgiven you, and be an imitator of God. So we need to be people who seek forgiveness and make that real within our lives. You know, Mahatma Gandhi put it this way, the weak can never forgive because forgiveness is the attribute of the strong. That's who we are, people who can forgive others. So I wrote out some things about what forgiveness is and what forgiveness isn't, and I want you to see those. Forgiveness is a decision and choice to give up rights and vengeance and retribution and negative thoughts toward an offender in order to be free from the anger and the resentment. See, a lot of times forgiveness is about my spirit and my heart. Yeah, I'm called to forgive, but it's about me. Forgiveness is a process that promotes healing and restoration and inner peace. Forgiveness is the starting point for reconciliation in the relationship. We offer that. What forgiveness is not, this is just as important. It is not forgetting, condoning, or perpetuating an injustice or wrongdoing. You don't just say, well, because I forgive you, I just condone the bad stuff you did. That's not what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is not granted on demand. Somebody can't come to you and just say, you must just forgive me right now. That's how it is. Because sometimes it's a process that we've got to work through. If someone's been harmed in a horrible way, it's a process to learn how to do that. And number 3, forgiveness is not just an automatic precursor to reconciliation because sometimes it is unsafe or impossible, and we've talked about that. That's how it is. So I thought, well, let's just throw up a few slides here of just healthy responses to conflict and how we react to it and what it's about. And any of these that just tickle your fancy, you say, oh, this is something I need to work on, and you can just jot it down, because it's all right there for us. So the first one is, there it is, unhealthy responses to conflict, being defensive or angry or hurtful. Is this a place where you need to work on that? Some people have a problem with this. It's a withdrawal of love, resulting in rejection of the other person, isolation, shaming of the other person, give them a fear of abandonment because I withdraw my love if I'm mad at them. That's not the reality of how we're supposed to live. An inability to compromise or see their side. An unhealthy response is just to avoid it completely and say, well, something bad's going to happen, so we're just not even going to deal with it. Now, good responses, healthy ones, are being calm and non-defensive and respectful, being ready to forgive like we talked about, not holding the resentments or anger, but letting them go, the ability to seek compromise and have empathy, or the belief that conflict has to be dealt with, and it does, in order to move forward. So some tips for it. If any of these hit you, then you just write it down. Number 1, empathetic listening. Pay attention to the feelings that are being expressed as well as the words that are spoken. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And this next one is so important. I'll just keep hitting this one. Okay. Make conflict resolution the priority rather than winning or being right. Far too often we get in arguments and I have to win. I have to prove I'm right. That's not the reality. The reality is we're trying to maintain and strengthen the relationship and make it better, and that's why we do what we do. And then focus on the present. How many times are we in the midst of arguments and you bring up things from 20 years ago? I know I won't make you raise your hand, but it happens all the time, doesn't it? Oh, you never. You see, those kinds of things do not help. You got to focus on the present and the now. Here's our situation. How are we going to fix this now? Not looking back 20 years. That does not help us. Another one, pick your battles. The reality is conflicts are draining. They take our time and our energy. Is it really worth it? Is it really worth battling about how the dishes are supposed to be done or put away? Those kinds of things are not worth it. Be willing to forgive. We already talked about this one. And the last one is a good one too. Know when to let something go. See, if you can't come to agreement, agree to disagree, okay? It takes 2 people to argue. If conflict's going nowhere, you can choose to disengage or take a time out. It's okay to have a time out in the middle of an argument. My emotions are here, I'm fighting, I'm angry, I'm not seeing things straight. Okay, time out. Maybe it's for 5 minutes, maybe it's an hour, maybe it's a day, maybe it's a week. We can come back and we can talk about this again when we are not overrun by our emotions in the midst of it. Or maybe you need to move on or find professional help in the midst of it. So here's what we're going to do. And this is all stuff that I got from a thing called Prepare Enrich. And I've gone to classes for this. And this is about premarital counseling and marital counseling, preparing them for marriage and enrich to enrich the marriage. That's what this is about. And I put all that information here. This is about conflict resolution. This is stuff that I sit and work with people all the time with. And I'm putting it out here right on a nice, beautiful slip of paper for you. See that? You can take that home just like you sat in marriage counseling for days or weeks or months or whatever it is. Conflict resolution. And here's where it starts. Number 1, schedule a time to do so and lay a good groundwork for it too. Pick a time and a place, lay the ground rules, and fight fair. It's got to be a safe environment where you're able to share my feelings and my perceptions without being ridiculed or harmed or disrespected or humiliated for it. Assertive talk. Take responsibility for my feelings. Say, this is how I feel. This is what's happening right here. And at the same time, we need to be involved with active listening. I'm hearing to understand, not to judge or come up with my argument when I'm trying to listen to you, but I'm just hearing to understand you and to get your perception, your position. Maybe even restate it and summarize. Here's what I'm hearing from you. Is this it? See, you come together in a safe environment. Number 2, and it's about communication, is gather the information to identify and clarify the issue. So important that you know exactly what you're arguing about. And once you find that real issue and problem and conflict, then you can begin to discuss how have each of you contributed to that problem. Without blame, list past attempts to resolve the problem. And remember, conflict resolution is the goal, not winning, not being right, not punishing. And I say this, and I really mean this. There are certain weapons that have to be off limits, and you know what they are in your relationships. You know those things that you could say, that issue that you can bring up that will crush your partner's spirit immediately, don't you? We all do it. We know it. We know those things, those broken parts of our partner. You can't use those things, man. That is just the exact opposite of what you're trying to do in conflict resolution, to just destroy your partner. That's not what this is about. It's not about winning. It's about coming together and making a good connection. You can jot this one down too. This is free also, right here, this one. This is a good one to jot down. Communication is this: 7% the words that you speak, okay? 7% the words you speak. 38% how it is said, your volume, your tone, etc. 55% nonverbal body language. So when you're talking or you're arguing, you're discussing these things, be thinking about that, okay? Here's the example I used in the first service. I think you'll get it. Someone comes up to me and they say something. They say, "You believe me, right?" And I look at them, I say, "I believe you." Person comes up and says, "You believe me, right?" And I say, "Yeah, I believe you." Now you tell me, which one says "I believe you" and doesn't? I said the exact same words. But how do you say it? What's your expression? What's your tone? What's your body language? That says so much more than the very words you're speaking out. Fighting fair. Taking care of each other. Loving each other. Another aspect of this, James 1:19-20. Here's what James tells us. Everyone should be quick to listen and slow to speak and slow to become angry, because a person's anger does not bring about the righteousness of God. If we could all just remember that. Quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry. You see, anger and emotions do not help in these situations. So when you feel those things happening, what you probably need to do is take a time out. Okay, I'm clouded by my anger, by my emotions. I can't see it clearly or fresh in what we need to do when we come together. It's kind of like the difference between a thermometer and a thermostat. Are you a thermometer or a thermostat? What do thermometers do? They measure the temperature of a room. You see, they rise with the temperature or the mood of the room. A thermostat sets the temperature for the room, doesn't it? It doesn't get it past this thing. So are you a thermostat? You set the temperature. You say, we're gonna keep it right here, calm and collected. Or are you the other side of it, the thermometer that goes, and pretty soon it's 110 degrees, and man, that's where we got to think who we are and what we're doing. And finally, the last one, don't assume or ascribe motives to the other person. Don't impugn them or question their motives, because you really don't know. And I see this happen all the time, man. People think they know the motive of that other person. You don't know what's in their heart or in their mind. And the story I gave in 9 o'clock service, I'll give you that one too. A story I read about a couple celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary. And they celebrated, had a great time, party with everybody, and they came home, and it was their nightly ritual that most oftentimes they would get together and they would have a little bit of toast and jam and maybe some tea or coffee before they went to bed. And that was just their thing that they did. Well, finally, it just happened that the husband was cooking up the toast for him, and he hands his wife the toast, and it's a heel with some jam on it. And she finally has had enough. She's like, 50 years. I do this, and we come here at night, and what are you mad at me? What did I do wrong that you give me the heel to eat? And he says, honey, I think the heel is the best part of the loaf of bread. So for her, she's mad. She's assumed he's given her the worst part of the bread because he wants the best part, and in reality, he's given her what he thinks is the best part, but she doesn't understand. You can't just assume the other person's heart. You can't assume their motives and what they're doing. But you can talk about it and see why. So finally, behind that, as we go through here, define the problem. And this is on the back page of your thing as we go through there. List ways in which you both contribute to the problem. Very important. List past attempts maybe to resolve it. If it wasn't very successful, that's okay. Brainstorm one possible solution. Don't judge or criticize any of the suggestions. Just brainstorm and see what could happen. Discuss and evaluate. Okay, there's the one possible solution we're going to try. We're going to try this and make this thing happen. Agree on that solution. Agree how each of you are going to work toward that solution. Be as specific as possible. Set up another meeting time. I guess I'll put that out there. I've got a nice picture for that. See, brainstorm, and then you see set up another meeting time for your progress report. And then when you get together, reward each other for the progress that you put together. See, if you notice your partner is making a positive contribution and working toward that, give him or her the praise. Just say, you see, I see you're working hard for this. This is awesome. Not, well, you haven't got it done yet, have you? I see which one really thinks is going to make it work better and work toward a conclusion. How we treat each other, how we love each other, where we're going. It truly is about the building blocks of healthy relationships, and that's where we are. And this is who we want to be. So remember those wonderful things of who we need to seek. Seeking peace, seeking reconciliation, seeking forgiveness, being people who live that, seeking mercy and offering mercy, and making that real within our lives.